If the rumors are true, the next Resident Evil game to be remade is going to be Resident Evil 4. I guess Capcom just completely forgot about Code Veronica and all its fans. At the time of its release, Resident Evil 4 was a great game for what it was. It was an action game that brought all these fresh ideas to the table and influenced many other games that came after it. But Resident Evil 4 is also terrible for what it was supposed to be. What I mean by that is that this was supposed to be the continuation of the Resident Evil story after 3 and Code Veronica. But instead, this game abandons everything that came before it. This game is so disconnected from the main storyline that it feels like Leon is just a guest character in a different video game altogether. This is the reason why Resident Evil 4 ranks so low on my list of Resident Evil games. But now that this game is potentially being remade, this is the perfect time to make big changes to help it fit in with the rest of the Resident Evil storyline. The first big change I'd love to see is obviously for this game to be less of a straight up action game and more of a mix between action and survival horror, like the series is known for. One of the best ways to do this is to actually have scary enemies this time. There's nothing scary about rolling up into a village and fighting people that look completely normal. You literally fight farmers that come at you with pitchforks and shovels. How scary is that? But nothing is goofier than watching a villager light up a stick of dynamite to throw at you. These villagers even go as far as to talk to Leon and curse at him in Spanish, and I'm honestly kind of surprised that Leon just doesn't have full conversations with them in the middle of combat. The only time these enemies are actually scary is when you're fighting them at night and the Plagas parasite pops out of their head. I'd rather see all the villagers replaced with this in the remake. Another way to build tension and instill fear in the player is to get rid of random money and ammo that drops from enemies when you kill them. I'm perfectly fine with Leon breaking open crates and finding ammo and money. And I'm also fine with Leon finding random treasures along his path. But there's something about seeing an enemy shit out a brick of ammo that just completely takes me out of the moment. This feature completely removes the survival horror aspect of the game and isn't even consistent with the rest of the Resident Evils that came before it. In the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes, you could shoot a zombie till it hit the ground and then run up to it and knife it, and it didn't feel overpowered. That's something I'd like to see in the Resident Evil 4 remake instead of these ridiculous attack reactions that Leon can do in the original game. Leon could be in the middle of a group of 5 enemies, shoot one in the face, roundhouse kick all of them in one fluid motion, and then go knife each one individually. I really don't think Leon should be able to kick and suplex his way through the game. One big feature from the original game that I would love to see removed is Ashley. I don't want to go through this story babysitting some defenseless, annoying character for the entire adventure. It wasn't fun the first time, and it won't be fun this time. In addition to being an annoying character, she also makes the storyline the most generic shit ever. Oh, the president's daughter got kidnapped. Better send our top guy to go get him. Yeah, that's real cool. The story could be that Lewis sent a sample of the Plagas to the United States, with a note saying this group is going to use this against you. This gives Leon a reason to go to the village, and fits in more with the theme of Resident Evil. That story took me 30 seconds to come up with, and I already think that's a better story than Ashley gets kidnapped. One of my biggest problems from the original Resident Evil 4 is just how long and boring the castle section of the game is. I'd like to see this section of the game cut down a little bit, but I'd love to see it completely removed. It doesn't help that this section of the game also features one of the goofiest villains in all of Resident Evil. That piece of shit Salazar. I don't know who came up with a shit character like that and thought that was a great idea. We should definitely have that in the game. Speaking of shitty characters, can we have Leon be less of a sarcastic asshole this time around? And I understand that people love Leon's one-liners, but that's all he is. He just says one-liners throughout the entire game.
Both of you.
Your right hand comes off? Where's everyone going? Bingo?
I think they did a fantastic job with Leon in the Resident Evil 2 remake. He acted like a rookie cop. He was afraid and unsure of himself in certain situations, and I hope he has a more natural reaction to the situation he's in the Resident Evil 4 remake. And I know the common argument is that he's had 8 years of training to get ready for this. But Resident Evil 4 is the first time he encountered the Plagas. How could he have trained for it? It's not unrealistic to think that he would be a little shocked by what he saw. In the original Resident Evil 4, he's completely unfazed by everything, and he just comes off as a one-line spouting robot. The final change I'd like to see is for Ada and Krauser to have some more backstory throughout the game. Every time I replay this game and Leon encounters Ada for the first time, it always feels like they've met somewhere else before this. And I don't mean like they've met before in Resident Evil 2. I mean somewhere along the way they must have met again. Leon doesn't even show an ounce of surprise to be seeing her again. I think that these are details the player should be aware of, and if they haven't met between the events of Resident Evil 2 and 4, Leon should maybe be a little surprised instead of acting like his normal robot self.
Women.
As for Krauser, I shouldn't have to play an entirely different shitty on-rail shooter game to get his backstory. But the more I think about it, the more I think Krauser should be a central villain from the beginning of the story this time. Krauser's backstory could be the key to really connecting this game to the rest of the Resident Evil games. During the original game, he mentioned something about working with Umbrella. And if the player gets to see Krauser's connection to Umbrella as they go through this adventure, it could really add something to the overall Resident Evil storyline. Anyway, that's my list of changes I'd like to see in this remake.